Tall Tales and Cocktails is a tipsy and raunchy good time for adult audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to episode 5.
Welcome back. We're glad to have you here.
Episode 5. I can't believe we're on episode... Welcome back to episode 5.
Welcome back. We're glad to have you here.
Episode 5. I can't believe we're on episode 5.
I know.
So crazy.
We've, done a whole cycle.
I know, a whole cycle. They don't really know what the cycle is.
They don't know what that means. That's nothing to do with menstruation.
No, nothing to do with menstruation. It's just the way we pick our topics. It's not a big thing. We're pretty toasted right now. What have you been up to for the last 2 weeks?
2 weeks. Actually, one of the things that I haven't talked to you about is, yeah, you can come to it if you'd like.
I don't know how to sew at all, but
yeah,
I might have to check it out.
Mandy and CJ started it, but
Nice.
I've been hosting it.
Nice.
And basically people, a bunch of ladies bring their sewing machines over and their projects, and we just, get to sewing on, our sewing projects.
That's so good.
And it's actually really helpful,
That's so cute.
because I just recently got a sewing machine, and, I can do certain things, but there's a lot about my machine that I didn't know, and just, a lot of tips and tricks that, I've either forgotten since home ec or just, never thought about. Facebook
That's
group.
awesome.
We have, little, funny names.
Does anyone crochet? Because that's what I really want to learn how to do, is how to crochet.
I think Mandy does, actually, because she was talking about making, a crochet thong for Ralph.
Oh, nice.
I think at some point. But, yeah, I think she knows how to do that.
I want to learn to crochet.
But, yeah, I think she knows how to do that.
I want to learn to crochet really bad. And every time I've tried, I watch the YouTube videos. I do everything I'm supposed to do, and it never does the thing it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I've never attempted crocheting.
Yeah. I would totally do sewing club if I had a sewing machine.
And honestly, there might...
Club if I had a sewing machine.
And honestly, there might be, a spare sewing machine that you could even use if you wanted to use it. Because Mandy, she's there to, teach us.
Nice.
Because I think she actually used to teach sewing to,
yeah, well, she
something.
basically is, qualified to be a seamstress, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
so she knows a
everything.
lot. Right now, I'm just making a tote bag.
I think the main thing to be able to make my own, because those are really easy to turn into tearaway skirts and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing I would want to learn how to do with sewing. We're getting sidetracked.
Yes.
Bunny trails.
But that's
yes.
what I've been up to. Sewing.
Sewing club. That's so fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
And they have names, my, CJ's name is, Thready Boop.
Thready Boop. That's so good. That fits her so well.
My name is, Billy Bo Bobbins.
Billy Bo Bobbins?
Yeah.
I love that. That's good.
Yeah. Can't have a club without...
Oh my god. I love that. That's good.
Yeah. Can't have a club without funny names.
So good. You have to have funny names in a club.
Yeah.
If we do start a sewing or a writing club and we get Gail on it, we all have to have nicknames.
Yeah.
Like pen names.
Yeah.
Pen names. They should be really distinguished. Be really distinguished, sounding but weird.
I want to sound smart.
I want to sound smart. What have I been up to? Since last time I recorded, I've done a couple photo shoots. Playing D&D, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Enjoying the weather. It's beautiful.
Yeah, now that it's finally spring.
Yeah. And last night we had a dad barbecue.
Yeah, we were dressed as dads.
Yep.
And had a barbecue.
Yeah, we were dressed as dads. We had a barbecue, and the whole troop time, I was Rick the Dick. I was a sports dad. And Severin was Uncle Severe.
Yeah.
Who looked like a Miami Coke dealer.
That's exactly what I look like.
It was Absolutely beautiful, and y'all should have been there.
Yeah, we had an arm wrestling contest.
Absolutely beautiful, and y'all should have been there.
Yeah, we had an arm wrestling contest. I'm still undefeated.
Yeah, you are undefeated, and that was super intense. Like, it was so good. We were all like cheering, like, sports, sports, sports.
That's what you do at a dad barbecue, right? Arm wrestling.
Yeah, arm wrestling.
Arm wrestling.
Yeah, arm wrestling. So this was our first annual dad barbecue is what we were calling it. So I think next dad barbecue, I'm going to have dad competitions. Like, dad groans. Like, everyone's going to have to line up and, like, sit in their chair, and we'll, like, randomly select, like, 3 judges.
And, we never played bags.
We didn't ever actually play bags.
We
talked about playing bags for like 20 minutes and never actually played.
And a dad joke competition.
Like beer can smashing contest. Who can get it like the flattest?
Like on your head?
Yeah, like on your forehead.
I've never done that. I don't know that I want to do
that.
I'm
right? I'm just trying to think of things. Best dad joke?
Yeah.
Dad joke rap battle?
Ooh. I don't even know that I would attempt that, but I know a few in our troop could actually probably kill it.
Oh, yeah. Your boyfriend could kill it.
Oh, yeah. He'd be so good.
Alex would kill that. But yeah, that's kind of what my life's been like lately. Yeah. What's our drink this week?
It's called Muddy Water. So, it's got an ounce of Irish cream liqueur, an ounce of coffee liqueur, and an ounce of vodka. And I added a little splash of iced coffee. Yeah, you can do that too if you
cut back the cream.
Through the cream.
Real creamy.
Yeah. It's really good. If you like
it's
coffee,
delicious.
It's a really good cocktail.
Yes, it is quite delicious. So go make yourself one of those right now. Pause it. Don't ignore us. But go grab yourself a drink. And let's talk about some mythology.
Yeah.
We've got some cool creation myths this week. Mythology.
Yeah.
We've got some cool creation myths this week. We decided to do a North American creation myth and a South American creation myth. So that's what we got for you this week. Severin, you want to kick us off?
Yes. So, creation myths of North America. I'm gonna cover 2 creation myths. There's actually a lot of creation myths from North American tribes. Some are different variations of the same myth. Some are very distinct. So I chose 2. I did one from the Lakota and the Iroquois. The Lakota, also known as the Teton Sioux, were part of a larger confederacy of tribes known as the Great Sioux Nation, which also included the Dakota and Nakota people. The Sioux were nomads and warriors of the North American prairies, where they lived in teepees and hunted the buffalo.
Is Sioux like Siaux? Like Sioux? It's pronounced Sioux?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I'm actually like a teeny tiny percentage Sioux.
Okay. So is it like
Sioux? It's pronounced Sioux?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I'm actually like a teeny tiny percentage Sioux.
Okay. So is it like the Sioux Nation? Like, so maybe one of these tribes?
I'm not sure entirely. My grandpa used to talk about it. But the story goes that in the past I'm also a little bit French, and the story goes that so there was a Sioux Native American and then French fur trader that got married.
Okay.
And that's like in my family lineage.
That's really
grandfather's side, because I believe my grandmother's side is full Swedish.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So I'm like Swedish, French, and Sioux.
I have so on my dad's side of the family, it would have been like his great grandmother was Shawnee, and we actually have a photo.
So cool.
Like the early printings. There's a photo of her, and her name was Justice. Of course, like she's got her hair pulled back, and she's she looks very European,
Right, as they did when they came here. And they just bastardized their culture and destroyed them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Part of the heritage.
That's awesome. What would be a really fun, like, Patreon video? We should do, like, 23andMe.
I actually have ancestry, one of the kits that I am still yet to...
Well, you should save that, and I could get a kit. And we could totally make a video when we get our results.
Yeah.
And we could do, like, a video of our, like DNA shit.
Yeah. I'm really curious.
I've always wanted to do it, and I just, like, can never justify it because I haven't had a reason to, but, like, I think it would be, like, a super cool video idea, and it kind of falls in mythology, like,
yeah.
You know, it's, like, tracing our history, like, that'd
be super absolutely. Cool. I think that would be a really cool idea. Oh, that's cool, though, that, like, you have some, like... You know,
yeah, that's the only parts that I really know. Swedish. On both my dad and my mom's side, there's a lot of Swedish.
I have a lot of German on actually both my sides.
Then a little bit of French and a little bit of the Sui, but I'm not sure outside of that. Okay. It's mostly Swedish.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So that's relatable in a way.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's weird. Yeah.
You know? Way back in the
why
day.
I get excited every time I see a buffalo because I actually think buffalo are super fucking cool.
Yeah, they are really cool.
They're just beautiful beasts. Like,
they really are. And I am very happy that they still exist because obviously, you know, there was that point in time when, you know, Europeans came and they almost killed them to extinction.
Yeah.
Which really, like, messed up the way of life for a lot of the Sui people.
Yeah.
And it actually, like, pushed them, like, further westward. Well,
I mean, take out the food supply.
Yeah.
It's also a control tactic in a way.
Yep. So that's a little bit of backstory about them to give some context of the type of people they were. So, like many Native, begins with a great spirit or a supreme being. To the Lakota, the great spirit was known as the Wakin Tonka, which is translates to great mystery. The mythology that emerged with those that inhabited the Great Plains sort of reflects, sort of like a featureless landscape. Just imagine open land that extends in all directions and endless sky. So sort of reflects like a lot of just openness. So in the beginning of their story, there was nothing except for the black of darkness, known as manifested itself in the first god, known as Inyan, which was a primordial stone spirit. Inyan wanted to show his great power, but had nothing to use his powers on because nothing else existed. So out of his blood, he created earth. Inyan then mated with the goddess Maka to create the blue dome known as Skan, which is the sky, and created like a boundary for Earth.
Oh, cool.
Skan then took the earthly darkness from Han, and the energy from the other gods and created We, which is known as the sun. And he ordered him to shine on the earth and eventually warmed up the earth. And so all four gods, Inyan, Maka, Skan, Skan, and We were all created one from the other and all made up the great spirit, the Wakin Tonka. But that's just the first of the four gods. It's described that these four superior gods, so they created other manifestations of the god. They created companions known as the associate gods, which included the moon, wind, falling star, and thunderbird. They then began to create the kindred gods, which is known as bears, which apparently at some point humans and bears were related to one another.
That's cool.
Which I thought was interesting. It also included buffalo, four winds, and whirlwind. So a lot of elements. And then you have, humans and bears that they created are known to be more like godlike attributes or spiritual characteristics of Wakin Tonka. The first is Nagi, which is the ghost of the dead. Nagila, which means shade-like. Nia, which is spiritual power. And all of these together, it's called Tope, which means 4-4, which basically makes up the spirit of the god. So I just thought it was interesting that they sort of have this class system of gods. It's like they sort of have this class system of gods. It's like very involved. You know, you have like superior gods, associate gods, then kindred gods. And like they each sort of like have a different role.
Yeah, it's cool. I guess it's kind of like in like Greek and Roman mythology with demigods, and it's cool. I guess it's kind of like in like Greek and Roman mythology with demigods and full gods. Well, in that case, I guess it's more based on breeding, if you will. But
right,
that's interesting. The hierarchy's cool.
Right. So let's see here. Creation myth. The other creation myth I wanted to talk about is from the Iroquois.
Ooh.
Their mythology is also influenced by the geographical region where they lived. They inhabited the lands that surrounded the Great Lakes region.
The Dakotas.
Yes. Well, the Dakotas would be more of like the plains.
Right. They're actually named after.
So they would have been more in like Ohio and Michigan.
Okay.
And like that area, like Lake Ontario as well.
Very cool.
But they were actually Lake Ontario as well.
Very cool.
But they were actually eventually pressured to move westward into the plains by European settlement. Also. So their creation myth is known as the Earth Diver story, which is probably one of the more like well-known or recognized stories from Native Americans. So it basically starts with the world being nothing but water. So that's why I think it's sort of like influenced by where they lived.
Because they're surrounded by lakes and there's
influenced by where they lived.
Because they're surrounded by lakes and there's a lot of water. That's super cool.
So
it's also the first time it's not just an empty void of nothingness.
I know, and that's what's interesting too, is because so many creation stories start with
empty void of nothingness.
So yeah, it actually already starts with like. Just nothing but water, but there are sea-dwelling creatures that are already into existence. So there's a being called the Sky Woman that apparently is linked as the first human ancestor, is caught by the sea creatures like fish, and to hold her up, they would dive into the sea, down to the bottom of the sea, and they would pull up mud. And they built on top of this, like, great sea turtle for the Sky Woman.
So they're one of the cultures that believe in, like, the world turtle.
The world turtle.
Yeah.
Which is, like, a very common, creation story.
Yeah.
Like, among Native Americans, but other cultures, too, have a very similar story, which I just thought was interesting. But the way that this myth ends, the Sky Woman creates a home from the turtle's back and sprouts corn, beans, and squash from her head, and also the sacred tobacco plant from her heart.
Ooh.
So yes, this myth deals less with multiple gods and like hierarchies.
It's more like nature.
Yes.
Which is so cool. I love that.
I really do like
some of this is sounding
mythology.
Vaguely familiar. Maybe not like the story Sweat Lodge before. And like the tobacco is really important. And
it's very important.
Like
in
the animals and stuff are really important. Like each round has a spirit animal. But yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I really like this story. That's why I did want to also cover this. So it'll kind of cross over with other creation myths that we cover. But I also just kind of like the idea of like the world beginning with nothing but water, and like just that idea.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there are theories that like, billions of years ago, like the Earth...
It was tectonic plates shifting and the, like, earthquakes and stuff, it started raising the land as it collided. It's actually supposed to be, like, a really violent process, like...
Yeah.
And, like, the world was, like... I can't remember where I've heard that from, but I remember watching something about how, like, the creation of land is actually, like, a really... Is it Land Before Time?
No, it's not Land Before Time. It's the one with the dinosaurs. It's the... what's it called? It's like Disney produced a movie with an orchestra that played.
Is it Dinosaur? Oh, not
Fantasia.
Is it Fantasia?
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite segments. Fantasia.
Is it Fantasia?
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite segments of that movie. That is my favorite segment because like. There's like the dinosaur age. And then there's like the parts where like the
maybe
Earth
that's what I'm thinking of.
It's pushed up. Yeah, that might be what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
I also just think also about the fact that like where Earth is like going now with like climate change, with like the ice caps melting, and like what. So this will go into my next segment. There isn't like an actual end one if it also ended with the world being covered in water. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like the cycle of life kind of thing. Like comes out of the water, goes back into the water.
Yeah. I just like after I got to thinking about that, I just thought that was interesting.
You'd imagine that it would. When you finish covering the myth, before we go into mine, I kind of want to, or maybe even after I talk about mine, because I don't think the Incas technically have an end time myth either. There's just the Mayas with the like end of the calendar.
Oh, right.
And everything,
right.
But I don't think they actually have an end time myth. But I kind of want to touch on that later about they actually have an end time myth. But I kind of want to touch on that later about maybe why these cultures didn't have an end time myth.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But
yeah. I also just can't not think about the movie Waterworld. Do you know what movie I'm talking about?
No, I do not.
Oh, okay. So it's like a really, really great 90s movie with Kevin Costner. It's like a post-apocalyptic movie. It's basically it's after the fact that the polar ice caps have melted and there's no land in sight, and so it's everyone's trying to just searching the world for land anywhere, and it's really great.
Huh. I have to check that out. That sounds really fun.
I think you'd really like that movie, but I couldn't help but think about that.
We need to have a movie night soon.
I know.
We're
building a list of
I'm talking
films.
Triple feature at this point.
Yeah.
We'll just
commit.
You just need to come participate if they want.
Okay.
We're all going to wear onesies. And we're going to bring sleeping bags.
All right.
And we're going to sleep on the floor in our sleeping bags.
I'm down for that.
Have a triple feature.
Yeah, we have a whole list of movies now, so...
I'm down.
We'll do that. But yeah, those are the two creation myth stories that I wanted to share. But back to the idea of there not being an end times myth. At least to the Lakota, they were I guess just more concerned with this world and not how I guess things would end for the most part. Yeah, so they don't really talk about the end of existence in its entirety, but they do speak of death and sometimes the afterlife in its entirety, but they do speak of death and sometimes the afterlife. So I thought I would cover a little bit of that. The origin of death, as it is described by the tribes of the Western Plains, begins with a quarrel between two beings, wolf and coyote. Wolf believed that when someone died, they could be brought back to life by shooting an arrow at the earth beneath them. Coyote did not believe that it was a good idea to bring people back from the dead because there would just be too many beings on the earth. So Wolf decided that Coyote was right, but decided that the first to die should be the son of Coyote. The wish of Wolf became true, and the son of Coyote did actually die.
Oh.
When that happened, he came to Wolf with the reminder that he could be brought back to life with an arrow shot beneath him. But then Wolf reminded him of his own words and said that man should die, and it remained that way ever since.
Huh.
So kind of an interesting story. As far as the afterlife goes, a lot of Native Americans are generally more concerned with the present world, but if they do talk of the afterlife, at least according to the Plains people, they do believe they will exist in a place like this, but with more game, so I guess more buffalo in their case.
Oh, so more rich hunting ground. It's like the
they call it the happy hunting ground.
The happy hunting ground
is what they refer it to.
That's cool.
So yeah, I didn't really have a lot of pop culture besides. Waterworld.
That's fine. I only have one in mind.
So, yeah. That wraps up.
That was super cool. I love how nature-based it is.
Yes. I am really drawn to just the mythology.
Yeah. I like stuff that's more rooted in, like, nature and, like, their gods, air quote kind of thing, aren't necessarily all-powerful beings. It's, like, worshiping nature and how the world works.
Right.
Which I think is super cool.
Right. I do
that.
really like that a lot too.
Super cool.
I told you if you added cold brew coffee to this.
It's not cold brew. It's just iced Starbucks coffee. It's not their cold brew. But it's a lot of coffee and we're hungover and also drinking. So.
Yep. I'm very caffeinated too. So.
But we're doing great on time too. But we're doing great on time for this episode. So it's all good. It's all good. Oh boy. Woo! We'll see what I cut out of this episode. All right. I looked into the Inca creation. Myth thanks to a suggestion from you, which I greatly appreciate because I was at my wit's end trying to pick a topic
having
for this
a
week.
creation story of like South America, I covered some North America.
Yeah.
I just thought that would be pretty cool. Plus,
Absolutely.
I actually want to learn about this, and so I was like...
It's pretty cool. I took Latin American civilization in college and absolutely loved it. We didn't talk too much about mythology because it was a history class.
Right.
Like, we touched on it briefly, but they have such a rich culture. I love South America. Like, they have such a great culture.
I'm glad I suggested it to you.
Since pretty much I was in college, so it's cool to look back into. But starting off, I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit about the Inca and, like, who they were, because everyone might not know.
Right.
But the Incan Empire was a large kingdom spanning from the northern part of Ecuador to the center of Chile, like the kind of central region. And it was composed of at least 100 ethnic groups in the 12th century AD.
Wow.
That's
actually a lot of people for that time.
Absolutely. It peaked in the 12th century, and there were 12 million people, and they were from 100 different, like, ethnic groups. Like, that's insane. We are.
Yeah. No doubt.
But I thought that was super cool. And then the empire was called Tawantinsuyu and was well structured with successful agricultural and roadway systems. So they were actually fairly advanced for the time period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is why a lot of, like, like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom for the Crystal Skull, it, like, takes place in, like, that kind of region. I think that one's might be Aztec, not Inca. But, like, they were really technologically advanced for the time period. Which is so cool. They also had a central religion to the entire empire, which helped to maintain the cohesiveness and, like, the rule system. And their military was a force to be reckoned with. They were really scooped out by sickness and then the superior weaponry of the Spanish invasion in 1572. Because when the Spanish came over, they had guns.
Yeah.
So the Incas are great fighters and brilliant warriors, but they didn't have guns.
Right.
So, South America.
Sounds
they just
a lot
survive.
like what happened in North America.
Yep. The Europeans came over and fucked everything up. I apologize for my ancestors.
Yes. Same.
So their myth, though. So I would just want to cover their, main, though. So I would just want to cover their, main deities real quick, just as, because I feel like their religion is kind of also central to their creation myth.
Mm-hmm.
They primarily worshipped Verkosha, Inti, and Chuki-Iya, the creator, the sun, and the thunder, respectively.
Okay.
So, Verkosha, creator, the sun, and the thunder, respectively.
Okay.
So, Verkosha, the creator,
I like
Inti,
that.
the sun, Chuki-Iya, the thunder.
I like that thunder, some sort of, being of thunder exists.
Right? Isn't that cool?
I mean, which it makes sense because thunder is so powerful.
We should look into it. There's more, thunder god.
The thunderbird, represents that, sort of god, and it's obviously, in other cultures as well.
It's super cool. I think we should definitely do an episode on thunder gods.
Thunder
That'd be
gods.
super cool. I love this. I love mythology. Okay. They also as spiritual, and then also huacas, which were significant locations and objects such as waterfalls, impressive rocks, or caves that they believed to hold spiritual significance or to be linked to the gods.
Oh, that's cool.
So they also kind of worshipped those too. The records through quipus, which were a series of knotted strings and were an accurate mathematical system. So I think they did have almost a coded language is kind of how I understood it. So they kept records, but it wasn't written.
I see.
It was tied into the knots.
I see.
In the strings, which I used to know how quipu worked. Through this group called 4-H. It was
4-H.
Yeah!
Shut up, dude. High five. Fucking love 4-H.
Did we just find another thing in common?
Are you serious?
Yeah,
dude, I was
4-H
so
when I was a
hardcore
kid.
into 4-H.
Yeah,
I like how you talk about it like I do, 4-H, it's nerdy. You probably wouldn't have ever heard of it. How you talk about it like I do, 4-H, it's nerdy. You probably wouldn't have ever heard of it.
It was super big in homeschool communities because it was
sure.
the way to involve your kid and stuff that you would get at school.
I always talked about 4-H being the better form of fundamental learning.
Yes,
and how
4-H is great because it's all hands on.
Schools were more learning.
Yes,
and how
4-H is great because it's all hands on.
Schools were more.
I went to an elk farm with 4-H, and I had my hair bit by an elk.
Yeah.
It grabbed my ponytail and pulled me into the fence. And the guy at the elk farm had to save me from the elk.
If that's not educational,
that's education.
I don't know.
The elk farm had to save me from the elk.
If that's not educational,
that's education.
I don't know what is.
It's just those hands-on experience.
Yeah.
I feel like our education.
I took so many projects. You could take cooking, sewing, photography.
Oh, so much.
That's when I took insects, and I learned a lot about insects and had an insect
That makes
coliseum.
so much sense now.
Dude,
I think sense now.
Dude,
I
rabbits and sheep.
I think our education system focuses a little bit too much on the theoretical and not as much on the application.
Yes.
It's a lot of book learning and not a lot of actual doing things.
It is a lot of book learning and not hands-on learning. Hands-on learning is so important. And so many people learn in different ways.
There are different learning styles, but we're not actually adapting to that.
Yeah.
You basically have the audio and visual covered. They figured out how to do that, but it's the kinesthetic learners still don't really have...
It's very lacking.
A way to learn effectively because they don't do it a lot other than, in science classes.
Education system.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be more customized.
4-H, which we had at FFA in my school, which was similar to 4-H, where you could show
cool.
animals, if you went, just
that's
school
super
wanted
cool.
to do that.
Yeah, I loved going to 4-H when I was a kid.
Yeah,
those were really fun.
Stuff.
Yeah, I loved going to 4-H when I was a kid.
Yeah,
those were really fun. Stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I think we went to one where we talked about quipus, or maybe that was in the homeschool co-op I went to. My mom put us in a lot of stuff when we were kids because she wanted us to be social still, even though we were homeschooled.
Good for her.
Which didn't always go so well because we weren't social because we were homeschooled. Yeah. So like my brother would cry. I would be excited for the other kids, but I didn't know how to actually interact with them. So I'd be like, hi, and I'd be like shaking and like excited to talk to them, but wouldn't know what to say to them.
Oh my god!
So, like, and then my brother would be like crying, hiding behind my mom.
Oh my god!
Side tangent about my childhood. And your childhood. That's so funny. We have that in common. But yeah, so most of what we actually know about Incan myths weren't passed down by the Incas themselves. It came from the Spanish invaders. They would hear what the natives had to say and then record it themselves. But they also viewed the Incan religion as heresy because they were Catholic. So it's not painted in the best light, and it might also not be accurate because you're also talking about a language barrier.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the mythology that's been recorded may not be as accurate.
Exactly. So we have believed because it could be so entirely distorted. You would hope there was at least one objective person there.
Yeah,
to
especially
record
they're like,
stuff.
these people are heathens.
Yeah.
You know, so they probably painted it out to be.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. Like, I mean, learn about the culture and don't apply your own to it. That's not the point of learning. But, you know, people.
Yeah.
Humans. So there's several different versions of their creation myth. The most common one is, like, even just when I read through it, you can tell it's pretty heavily influenced by a Christian perspective. Mm-hmm. But I called it the heavily influenced by a Christian perspective. Mm-hmm. But I called it the Veracocha origin. So in the beginning of time, all was dark and formless. So we have the dark primordial void again. The creator god Veracocha rose up out of the waters of Lake Titicaca and formed the land and the sky. In some versions, Veracocha first created a race of giants out of stone, but in others, the giants were already inhabiting the darkness, like they were just beings that already existed. Okay. So there's kind of a disconnect there too, like, did he create the giants out of stone? There's also some, which I'll get to in a little bit. So there's a lot of...
Yeah, that's kind of a common...
Stone and clay being the form of human. Yeah, which is interesting because we actually have, like, certain minerals in our makeup that come from, like, stardust and stuff. So it's kind of cool because those are, like...
About that.
Yeah. Anyway, I keep getting sidetracked. I apologize for my intoxication level and my caffeination. But yeah, so there's some discrepancy there. But in either version, the giants disobeyed Veracocha and wouldn't acknowledge him as their god. So he flooded the entire world and turned the giants back into stone. Another thing...
So they have, like, a flood story.
Yeah, they have a flood story. And this is something I actually remember looking into when I was homeschooled, because my mom was really big into teaching us mythology, because she also enjoyed it.
Man, good for her.
So, some of the earliest lessons... that I, like, remember from homeschooling are about mythology. Like, we covered Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and Egyptian mythology for, like, a year each when we were homeschooled. So, and then also, like, it's super cool. But I remember at the time, most of the books that my mom used for homeschooling were Christian-based. Because I grew up pretty strict evangelical Christian background.
Okay.
And there was one book, though, that we talked about where it compared flood stories. There's Noah's Ark, and, like, God flooded the earth and everything because people disobeyed. Well, the Incas were also included in that, and I think if you look at the time periods of where those stories came from, they come from a similar time. I would have to fact check this. This is just from my childhood memory, so don't quote me on this. But flood,
because even when I was covering the Native American stories too, there is a flood story also.
Yeah, when you trace, like, about the timeline of when those stories, like, originated and stuff, it all seems to be talking about the same flood. So it's, like, different ways the cultures, like, explained it. In this case, it's a little loose because this was supposed to be before humans even existed.
Right.
But it's also interesting that they have, like, a flood story. And honestly, there's probably another one that I just didn't, like, get to because I was just strictly looking at creation. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So he flooded the world.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So he flooded the world, and then he turned the giants back into stone.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he created the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and the stars to light up the world. To wipe away the darkness and brighten things up and make it pretty. And then after the failure of his first test subjects, is what I called them, he decided to form people in his image. The first men were called Vari Verakosharuna, and the second group of men were called Varakoshas. Varakosha, the god in the world, and sent them forth to wake up the people deep in slumber in the caves, near waterfalls, and other remarkable places. So he made people in his image, and then told them how he wanted all the cultures in the world to be, and then sent them out to go teach the people what their culture and role was in the world. And these places that he sent them to in their mythology are what became the Huacas. So the places they worshipped were the places where humans kind of originated from, for the most part.
That's really cool.
Which is so cool!
Yeah.
It's so cool. But after he sent them out, it's so cool. But after he sent them out, Varakosha went on his own journey, and he began his journey towards what he would one day establish as the city of Cusco, which was the main city of the Inca Empire, which that name might ring some bells, and we'll talk about it later. And he started awakening the people of the earth as well as he traveled. But when he lifted this one group of people called the Kanas from their slumber, they attacked him and did not recognize him as their god, so they kind of rebelled. So Varakosha made fire rain down as their god, so they kind of rebelled. So Varakosha made fire rain down on a nearby mountain until they begged him for forgiveness.
Whoa.
But he ultimately forgave them, so he was forgiving. But he made fire rain down on a mountain.
God.
Right? It's like some Mortal Kombat shit.
That's wild.
I love it. But so he continued his travels to a high mountain and placed a great statue for the people to see. It didn't say what the statue was in any of the research I came across. I can only imagine it was a statue of himself or something like that, because I feel like that's always what it is. And stated that it would be ruled over by the Orajones, meaning big ears. These rulers wore large gold discs in their earlobes.
Oh, okay.
So when you see like pictures and like paintings of like Inca people, there's some that have the big gold disc in their ears. Indicated royalty, which we'll actually see in the variation as well. And then after that, Varakosha departed to the sea and walked across it into the horizons with the first men. So the Varakoshas.
Okay.
So him and the Varakoshas departed and crossed the sea, and he gave one last warning to his people, the Varakoshas.
So where'd they go?
I don't know. That's where the story ended. They walked across the sea and were like, don't trust anyone who claims to be us. Goodbye.
Dang.
But I thought that was super cool. It's a cool story, you know, like he created... It's a cool story, you know, like he created not just their culture, but all cultures, I think is really interesting. It's cool. But then there's also an alternative myth, which I kind of like a little better. I'm not sure. It was hard to choose which one I like better. They're both really good. But in an alternative version, I called this one... They're both really good. But in an alternative version, I called this one the myth of the three brothers and three sisters. In this myth, there are three brothers and three sisters that emerged from the caves of Pekarik Tumbo. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And there was 3 caves, and the brothers and sisters came out of the caves. They were clothed in fine wool and carried many vessels made of gold. Ayar Kashi, one of the brothers, launched sling stones to transform the land, and this angered his siblings as they did not have the strength to shape the land themselves, and none of his siblings were.
Ooh.
So they got jealous
Jealousy.
of him, and they made this plot to get rid of him. So they deceived their brother and sent him to obtain a golden goblet and a sacred llama that they claimed was forgotten in the place of origin that was supposed to come with them.
Oh.
So he goes off
we forgot the llama.
we forgot the llama! So they send him to this cave, and when he gets to the cave, they seal him inside of it.
Fuck.
Yeah, they seal their own brother inside of this cave because they're jealous of his super strong slingshot abilities.
Dude, just practice.
Right? Work on that shit. It's just so he didn't stay there. Irakashi actually escaped and appeared before his siblings and instructed them to wear golden earrings as a sign that they were royalty.
Okay, so that's a common
that's
thing.
a common theme that was in both. So since they were the first humans, they were royalty. So since they were the first humans, they were royalty. So he made his siblings wear the gold earrings, which honestly I think is a form of torture because you have gauges.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have gauges.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, a long time ago. I only ever got up to 8s, and after that my ears rejected it. I only ever got up to 8s, and after that my ears rejected it. Straight up would not heal when I tried to go to 6s.
My earlobes are so thin that I just don't think I should stretch them out anymore.
Yeah, I wanted to get to a 0 just because all the cool ones,
I know,
the smallest size they come in are 0.
I know.
And that's where I wanted to get to when I was in college. And then when I tried to gauge to 6, my ears just completely rejected it. They would not heal. They would, get pussy and bleed. And, sorry, that's really gross. But, I couldn't do it. So I ended up just taking them out. And I had amethyst plugs that I loved, and I lost them.
I was just going to say, yeah, there are some really cool ones. There's, insect plugs. And I'm like, I want that, but my earlobes are too tiny.
Yeah, I got tiny little earlobes, and I think I just have really sensitive skin, because anything like that has always been a challenge.
Make it really hard to stretch out.
Yeah, even when I got my doubles, one side got infected, almost immediately, so I only have one double piercing in my ears. But he's like, you sealed me in a cave. You're gonna stretch your ears to be fucking huge.
Yeah.
Because it hurts. The first day you stretch, it is not a good feeling.
No, it's not.
It's not fun. But then after that, he instructed them to find him at the summit of Huana Obedient, and they traveled up to the summit of this mountain. And he appeared before them again at the summit. And there wasn't a lot about exactly what happened here. Oh, but okay. Ayar and one of the other brothers turned to stone when they were at the summit. And turned to stone when they were at the summit. And then I think that's kind of the statue that they were talking about.
Okay.
In the other myth. So I think they became the statue. And then Manco Capac, the last brother, became the founder of Cusco, where the Temple of the Sun was eventually constructed.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm not sure where they created other siblings. I didn't find that part in, but I think eventually it overlaps with the Viracocha myth, which is kind of why I didn't cover anything past that. Mm-hmm. Because it does Viracocha makes Manco the king, and then he's supposed to go out and awaken the people. So it's kind of similar. I don't know.
Interesting.
But, yeah, it's very cool. I really enjoyed learning about the Incan creation myths. I thought they were different, and even yours were so different from mine. And way different than the Norse creation myth.
I think
there's no primordial cows or hermaphrodite giants.
Yeah. I think that there is one of the Native American tribes, I think actually, I don't know that they're gods or anything, but the first people emerge from caves.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme in indigenous cultures is the emergence from caves, and I think it's because caves are so mysterious and unknown.
Definitely.
I feel like that's kind of where that comes from. And then let me just go pop culture here real quick, and then I do want to talk about why they don't have end time myths. Because I think there's gotta be something to that. I don't know. So I tried really hard to find a pop culture reference for a creation, the Incan creation myth, and they've just never turned it into a film.
Dang.
But, so I tried really hard to find a pop culture reference for a creation, like the Incan creation myth, and they've just never turned it into a film.
Dang.
But I have to mention, because it's the Inca Empire, in the year 2000, Disney released a delightful...
Dang.
But I have to mention, because it's the Inca Empire, in the year 2000, Disney released a delightful comedy about a spoiled and selfish Incan emperor.
Okay.
And this film is called The Emperor's New Groove.
Of course.
Which is
a great movie.
The spoiled brat's name is Cusco. He gets turned into a llama by his evil advisor Yzma, and she's got her henchman Kronk, who's a real dummy. And hijinks ensue, and he goes on an adventure of self-discovery and humility. It's honestly one of the most quotable movies ever. Like, I quoted it all the time. I don't remember all of them. The big ones I remember are like, Kronk, pull the lever! And like stuff like that. I remember something about a squirrel at the end, but it's great. But if for some reason you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch it. You won't regret it. Honestly, I think they did a pretty good job of portraying, like, Incan culture. I think they did a lot of research for it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. That's my creation myth.
Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just really curious about why they don't have end time myths. Maybe it's because their time spans really weren't cut that short. They were invaded, yes. But you think they would have an apocalypse myth where they could fit that into it, you know?
Maybe they were just all really optimistic.
That could be.
They were like,
right. I mean, their empires are
going
super
wrong,
cool. The Iroquois and Lakotas, like they hunt buffalo all day. They're out on the plains. Like, that's a great life. It's super simple.
Right.
Like, good tribe mentality. Very collective.
Mm-hmm.
Collectivism. Like, there's like this natural human nature to be fascinated by death. I think it's why there's, like, the serial killer obsession and stuff. I think, humankind is just, like, fascinated by death. So it's kind of and destruction.
Completely terrified of death, too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Maybe it's because they were so much in balance with the
world around them and nature. It's the cycle of life. Why would they have some crazy...
You know, maybe they just
thing
didn't have any idea of anything that could throw that balance off because they were just very,
that is true.
One with nature.
That does make sense because when you think about it, so both of their cultures, like, yes, the Incas had gods, but it was more like forces of nature outside of Viracocha, but he just kind of left. Like, he wasn't there watching
their
over
gods
them.
had opposing gods.
Exactly. They, like, from what I...
Gods had opposing gods.
Exactly. From what I could tell, there was no, like, evil deity. I'm sure there is some kind of representation of evil, but for the most part, it's just nature. So I guess if you're just worshiping the cycle of life, it would be natural that things would end. So they probably didn't think about it that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, the most that I had read about was, like, they just weren't even really concerned with that as a concept, like, the end of times.
That's super interesting.
And it's not like they didn't think about death, but they didn't think about, like, a collective, like... Right.
Right. That's interesting. Cool. Well, it's time for something.
Oh, my goodness, you were right.
It is time for a little thing that we like to do on this podcast that I hope you guys are enjoying as much as we are.
We do really enjoy it.
But...
Takedown!
Severin, tell us what our new Tall Tales Takedown segment looks like.
Okay, well, so we're going to have some episodes like this one where we maybe don't have, like, a good fighting. One fighter versus another.
Right, we don't have gods every week, or creatures, or American legends.
And since, we like the Tall Tales Takedown concept and want to do it every episode, we decided that we would do a drawing that would be
I'm so excited.
Completely random, but the drawing that we do is going to include all of the important, significant figures, beings, gods, creatures, and everything that we have covered so far in our podcast.
Yeah, it is going to be awesome. This is such a great idea, Severin.
I hope it goes well.
But yeah, so we're going to draw...
So we're going to draw... You'll draw one, and then
I'll draw a person, you're going to draw a person, and then we have random events for them to compete in.
So we're going to have... It's going to be a 3-round battle. We also have another drawing, so we're going to do 3 different drawings for that.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's dope. So it's 3 rounds?
3 rounds.
That's dope.
So
and then,
round
we're
one.
not, eliminating competitions as we go.
Right,
so that part.
Okay.
Yes!
Yeah, we're doing that also.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so let's make sure this is the first...
This is the contest.
Okay.
Alright. So this is our first time doing this. Give us some feedback if you like this. And, what you think of the podcast so far. Please give us some feedback.
Yeah, we would
it.
like that. We like to know. Okay.
That would happen on the first drawing. But
we put our names.
Yes, we also put our
names, and I just drew my name, and I can't draw my own name, so
yes.
I put it back in. I just drew my name, and I can't draw my own name, so yes. I put it back in.
So we traded. I gave Severin my drawing, and I took hers because let's be legit.
Yeah,
it was drawn.
Yeah,
who are in my corner?
Okay.
I've got Severin Beekman, also known as Severin Severe, and Uncle Persevere, and many other names.
I have many names.
Also, the most fantastic sex demon from hell I've ever had.
Yeah, we had a good act where that was my character.
Yes.
In my God and ruler of the Aesir.
Oh boy! Severin versus Odin!
Okay, so, this is gonna be interesting. So, round 1, we're gonna do our drawing for that now.
Alright, do you want to draw the first contest, or should I draw the first contest?
You do it.
Alright, I got it. Alright, Severin, what are you gonna be competing with Odin himself in? A fist fight!
Okay. Well...
I mean, you're a great arm wrestler.
I'm a good arm wrestler, but I don't know...
You got some guns that you can throw into this fight? I believe
briefly,
in you. You're my fighter. That you can throw into this fight? I believe
briefly,
in you. You're my fighter.
I took some mixed martial arts for a brief period of time.
Dude,
but I stopped because when we were learning this certain hip toss, I dislocated his...
You got this, man!
I dislocated his...
You got this, man!
I dislocated his collarbone, and I felt bad, and I thought maybe MMA wasn't for me, so
you just gotta hip toss Odin.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 eyes. So.
And, yeah, he's only got 1, you got 2.
If I can, get aim right and poke
you
out
just gotta aim. He's only got 1, you got 2.
If I can, get aim right and poke
you
out
just gotta aim in. So, my vote for round 1 fist fight goes to Severin.
You know what? I'm gonna be confident for once, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna win too.
Yay! Alright, so round 1 we go Severin. Tally up for Severin.
All the next round, the next competition. Okay, the next round is Chariot Racing.
Oh boy! Do you have any horse
I
experience?
have 0 horse experience.
I think
Odin is...
I think this one's gonna go to Odin, because horses were common back then. A chariot, maybe then?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only experience I had was I had a pony once, but it hated me, and I eventually hated it because it was just I was 9 years old.
You had a pony?
I had a pony, and if I started with a small horse, it might have worked out better, but ponies are just assholes.
Aww.
And it bucked me off all the time. It bit me, and it kicked me, and finally I was like, I don't know that this pony is for me.
Yeah, I think round 2 is going to have to go to... Right, so we are in a tie going into round 3. Are you going to take this home, Miss Severe?
We'll see. I hope it's a good contest.
I don't know what this is. Hoop trundling.
Okay, hoop trundling.
Is that the hoop trundling?
Okay, hoop trundling.
Is that the hoop and the stick?
Yep, it's the hoop and the stick. It's the hoop and the stick game.
It's when you
it's not very common now.
Yeah,
but
you like
run
take the
along.
stick and you like. I worked at a reenactment village.
Okay, I was like, how would you do that? Like, I didn't think they sold those.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I was like, how would you do that? Like, I didn't think they sold those.
Yeah, no, I worked at a historical reenactment village in my hometown when I was a kid. Like, I volunteered at it because they needed, like, kids and teens to, like, populate the little town. Mm-hmm. It's called Midway Village, so I just triangulated my childhood. It actually was on their brochure for a while. We both did it, but they, like, dressed me up in, like, authentic, like, colonial wear.
Yes.
And I would sell root beer and do crafts with the kid, like colonial crafts with the kids, and then I would just run through the town every so often with a hoop and a stick. But I never...
I had to look it up, but I knew I wanted to have that as a contest.
That's so good. I'm trying to... So, Odin, with a stick and a hoop, hitting it. I mean, he doesn't have hand-eye coordination, probably, because, you know, he's missing an eye.
I think I would actually be pretty good at it.
I think you would be really good at it. I mean, missing an eye.
I think I would actually be pretty good at it.
I think you would be really good at it. I mean, you do flow arts, you do prop manipulation. Like, I think you'd be great at it. So,
Yeah.
My vote, Severin gets hoop trundling.
I'm going to vote for myself, too.
So, round 3, the winner of our Tall Tales Takedown first... Round 3, the winner of our Tall Tales Takedown first ever 3-round competition is Severin, and she is kissing her muscles, and it is sexy, let me tell you.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, Udin. It just happened to be that the contests that were randomly drawn
worked very out honor over here. Yeah, Tall Tales Takedown. Thanks for listening, guys. It's episode 5. Thanks for bearing with us this week. We're, like we said, a little hungover from our party last night, and we had coffee cocktails.
Yeah.
So that caffeine liquor mix is real. Real quick before we go, our social media tags. We've got facebook.com/TallTalesPodcast. As we say every week, is our Facebook page. Our Instagram is at Tall Tales Podcast. And then on YouTube, you can still just search for Tall Tales and Cocktails. Still haven't quite figured out what we want to do to get us up to 100 subscribers. I'm just going to mention that for a YouTube URL is to have 100 YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, we need
and
a
then
lot.
to be active for 30 days, which we've been active for 30 days. But we only have like 2 followers on YouTube.
I only have 2 followers
I'm
on
one
YouTube.
of them.
Oh, shoot. I'm not one of them.
You should get on there. Then we have 3.
I'm...
So, we don't have a contest yet, but hey, go subscribe to our YouTube, because that would really help us be able to get a URL, and I don't have to tell you to search Tall Tales and Cocktails every week. I'd really love that.
Yeah.
So we can just make it Tall Tales Podcast like everything else.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can always email us at talltalesandcocktails@gmail.com. And then, of course, you can always email us at talltalesandcocktails@gmail.com.
Tell us what you think.
Contact us. Tell us what you think. We want to hear from you.
I really like hearing feedback. I
You
really do.
know what? Let's start an interactive element to this thing. This just popped in my head. Let's ask a question for our listeners every week.
Oh, I like that.
So every week if you follow our stuff, you would know that we post a photo the day the episode comes out. So after you listen to this, go to the photo post and on Instagram. Our question this week, so we've talked about nature. What is your favorite element?
Ooh.
Like the
fire, water, earth.
Yes. Thank you.
air.
I can't think what those are called, but yes, those elements.
Yes.
They're like spiritual elements. Fire, water, earth. Tell us that. Interaction. Please do it.
I like that. That's a good question.
I want to know more about our listeners. So yeah,
I do too.
that. And then next time on Tall Tales and Cocktails.
Ooh, yeah. We're
What
going to
are
talk
we
about
doing?
chimeras.
Yeah! We're not going to tell you which ones yet, or
Yes.
where, or...
Ugh.
Do you have anything you want to add?
No.
We have been talking for like almost 2 hours. This is
Yeah,
amazing.
I'm talked out.
But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We will see you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Adventure is now, and adventure is next time.